sometimes thanks seems inadequate. You wish you'd get up here and just give everybody a big hug. My family and I are deeply appreciative of all the support. People ask how you doing on the race that never ends. I tell them I've been counting and recounting my blessings since November. But there are a lot of people who have come up to me in this room, but I got to tell you, around the country, if not around the world, to say, Senator, we're praying for you. And I really appreciate that. I'm not wringing my hands. I'm not anxious. In the end, I have great trust in the people of this state. And I am confident that when all the votes are counted, I'm going to be returning to the United States Senate. So I feel very good. Let me first, before I get started, acknowledge the leadership of our great Governor, Tim Pawlenty. We are blessed with a great governor. I want to thank Ron for his leadership, and I know we had here we are on a beautiful Saturday. It's about as good as it gets, and you're here. There's no sunroof bringing the sun in. You're here, doing important work. And I appreciate that. And there was a tough battle for state party chair. And I want to congratulate Dave, and I want to congratulate Carey, and I want to congratulate Tony Sutton for his victory. We're going to all come together in victory, and we need to come together. And thank you for being here and being part of that. Give yourselves a round of applause. I want to do two things in the time I have. First, very briefly, just let me just talk about the race, just so you know, where are we at? The reality is we got more votes that were legally cast and counted on Election Day. That happened. No question about that. Now, since that time, we've still got over 100, net 100 votes in Minneapolis that have been double counted that have not been dealt with. And that's kind of out there. Frustrating, but it's out there. But then more important, the lead that Al Franken has been based on absentee ballots that were not counted on Election Day, have been counted since. And our message is very clear, that whether your vote counts, an absentee ballot counts, shouldn't depend on where you live. That there are over 4,400 Minnesotans who, if they had lived, almost all of them, if they had lived in, whose votes have not yet been counted, they're still disenfranchised. And by the way, until we began this process, they didn't know they were disenfranchised. And I'll be very, very blunt. Most of them come from heavily Republican areas. That's because the votes in Minneapolis and Duluth and St. Paul have all been counted, essentially. Out of those 4,400, almost all of them, if those folks had lived in Minneapolis or Duluth or St. Paul, the votes would have been counted on Election Day. And we don't think that's fair. We don't think the Constitution allows that. And in the end, that's what this is about. It's about enfranchising voters. It's about having the same standard where their vote is counted in Chaska or Plymouth as it is in Minneapolis or Duluth. And that's all we're asking for, and that's the path to victory. But winning isn't about me. It's not about me or even us as Republicans. It really is about this country and about the future of the country. The one vote in the United States Senate, one vote is a difference between possibly people losing the right to a secret ballot in a union election or not. One vote. One vote. If I'm in the U.S. Senate, folks are not going to lose the right to a secret ballot in a union election. Okay? One vote. One vote between the potentiality of a slippery slide into the path of government-controlled health care. If I am in the U.S. Senate, we're not going to have government-controlled health care. It's not going to happen. But in the few moments I have today, I want to talk to you not about what we're going to stop or what we're against. We really need, and that's the challenge and the opportunity, is to talk about what we're for, what it is that we're going to do to unleash the creative energy in each and every American to be the very, very best they can. That's what we're about. That's our vision. That's our path. This election, by the way, was about change. No question about that. But the American people didn't want to change America. They wanted America to change Washington. That's what they wanted. Okay? And no more fiscal irresponsibility, no more unresponsive government. That's the change people want. They don't want to change America. America is a great country. It's a gift. And we want to keep it strong. And people now are frustrated. Listen, there's no doubt that we got to increase the reach of our party. We got to reach out to new Americans. We got to reach out to young people. There's no question about that. Reach out to conservative, blue-collar Democrats. That's our challenge. And part of it, I'm going to just very briefly, part of it is about tone. You know, in a time when I'd say the culture has been Oprah-sized. You know, at times we're seen as being scolding or intolerant, and that's not what America wants. The American people agree with us. They do like the president. Ronald Reagan, William Buckley, Jack Kemp, I call them happy warriors. They had a vision for America. It may sound trite, but I got to tell you, we have to find more ways to be more likable and win people over to vote for people who actually do what they, the people, believe in. That's what we're about. People believe in our vision. But in the end, it's about ideas, and our ideas will win the day. And what we have developing in America is an irresistible collision, a collision between the irresistible force of Barack Obama's personality and the immovable object of world history. Let me use education as an example. For a long time, a lot of public school teachers come up to me and they tell me that one of the hardest parts of their job is what they call innovation fatigue. Every couple of years, a new idea comes along, new magic bullet solution. Everyone goes into seminars, the curriculums change. We pour a ton of money in it. We dealt with this mostly in Minnesota with profiles in learning. Remember that? Remember that? Within a year of implementation, all its flaws become obvious and it's junked. Teachers await the next great idea with skepticism and disgust with the way we continue to spend money on things that don't matter. My kids go to a school, focuses on classical education. They recognize that maybe we've learned something in about 1,000 years of what really works. What really works. If it's true in education, it's also true in government. Conservative principles, the vision of our founding fathers, have been tested over time. They work. America would be better served if our kids studied American history and read the Federalist Papers. We'd be better served. The principles that have made America the greatest nation on the earth still hold today. Look at the Democrat obsession with increased taxes and spending. The president says we can tax and spend our way to prosperity. But world history says there's always a day of reckoning when you spend money you don't have and spend it willy-nilly. Debt as a percentage of GDP has increased tenfold over Obama. The president says trust government and distrust private enterprise, but world history shows that markets allocate resources best, and government control always hurts productivity, innovation, and growth. The president says we can change ruthless dictators into model citizens if we just talk to them and make our case. But world history shows that you can only achieve peace through strength, and evil is encouraged by anything less. And history should tell our president that in your quest to be loved, don't toss our only democratic ally in the Middle East, Israel, under the bus. By the way, message to the president, America's debate over glass ceilings or Title IX violations do not equate with women being stoned for showing an ankle in Iran or honor killings in Pakistan. They don't equate. Not the same. Now, the fact is we find ourselves in a moment when we are questioning our purpose and trying to find our path back to being majority party. But with great challenge, there's always opportunity. We can recapture the people because Obama is wrong on the issues, domestic and international. Movement towards European-style social democracy, greatly expanded government reach in health care and industry powered by dogmatic spending increases will invariably lead to higher taxes, inflation, and devaluation of the currency. A foreign policy predicated on wanting to be liked rather than respected will have serious consequences when dealing with intransigent nations like Korea, North Korea, and Iran. We need to say it before it happens. You know, in the end, our challenge is to convert ideas into action. Thomas Edison once said, most people miss opportunity because it comes dressed up in overalls and is disguised as hard work. Barack Obama mobilized an army of thousands because they hated the war in Iraq. They put their businesses on hold, pulled up stakes. They moved to Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina because they cared so deeply about the cause. Do you care deeply about the unborn? Are you willing to give them 6 months of this movement of your life to save them? Are you willing to do that? Do you care? Do you care deeply about your kids and grandkids? Are you willing to give this movement 6 months of your life to protect them against being saddled with debt that will suffocate their chance to seize the American dream? Are you willing to do that? Do you care deeply about private property and economic freedom? Are you willing to give this movement 6 months of your life to secure them? Are you willing to do that? I got to tell you, whoever wants this the most is going to prevail. Can you and I and thousands of conservatives across America summon the will to put our blood, sweat, and tears into the game? The answer literally writes the next chapter of American history. Let me close with the story of a Minnesota icon many of you have heard of called Sister Elizabeth Kenny. She was an Australian nurse. That's how she got the sister. She wasn't a nun. When the world was under the plague of polio, she invented the successful therapy that improved the lives of millions and millions around the world. But to do what she did, she needed to overcome the opposition and scorn of the national and international medical establishment that was against her ideas. She ended up in South Minneapolis because the big shots in New York, Chicago, and LA slammed their doors in her face. Listen to her words at the time. I am correct and the rest of the world is wrong. I cannot deny what my eyes see. I am engaged in a terrible struggle. I have to have the bulldog courage to hear the cries of the afflicted children. Let's take a few lessons from Sister Kenny. Just because we are few doesn't mean we're wrong and they're right. Most of the time it's exactly the opposite. It takes bulldog courage to overcome obstacles. Bite hard and don't let go. And we can succeed if we keep our eyes on the people that we're fighting for. Sister Kennedy fought for the children. We fight for families, for people of faith, for small business owners and entrepreneurs, people from all over the world who want the world to be more like America and not the other way around. Members of the Minnesota Republican Party, listen to me carefully. The ancient Jewish philosopher Maimonides, and I've used this quote so many times and so many of you have heard it, once said that each of us should view ourselves if the world were held in balance, and any single act of goodness on our part could tip the scales. We need 1,000, 100,000, 1 million acts of goodness on this part, on our part, to tip the scales. You know, I one more time tell this story when I got into the US Senate and sat before John Roberts, who came before me to be confirmed as Chief Justice, and he thanked me for him being there. And he said to me, Senator, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. And I said, Judge, what do you mean by that? Well, he had been nominated to be on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. At that time, when I was running in 2002, Democrat majority, 51-49. Roberts' nomination was put on the shelf, and it wasn't going forward. I got elected by 47,000 votes over Walter Mondale, and I became the 51st Republican. His nomination was taken off the shelf. He then became confirmed as a judge on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, and then stood before me, become Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. Those acts of goodness on the part of the folks in this room, on knocking on the doors, on licking the envelopes, on making the contributions, have changed the world. We don't know what the future holds. We don't know what our deeds will do. God knows that. But I always tell you, I always say, David Ben Gurion, first Prime Minister of Israel, said, anybody who doesn't believe in miracles is not a realist. Okay? But miracles tend to stop happening when we stop doing our part. So let's do our part. It's not going to take a miracle for me to win this race. It's going to take justice on the part of the Supreme Court. We can do that. But beyond winning my race, as I said before, it's not about me. It's about what we stand for, what we represent, the love we have for this great nation, the love we have for our kids, for small business, for entrepreneurs. Let's unleash that power, move America forward, onward to victory this year. We'll elect a Republican governor in 2010, and it starts right here in this room right now. Thank you all very, very much. Thank you. Thank you.